Hey, I noticed recently that Tony Robbins and Dean Grazioni are running a whole bunch of adverts. I'm seeing them all over the internet. They're clearly launching their knowledge-based business program again, which I'm sure is great. Not seen it personally, but I'm sure it's great. But interestingly, there's something that they talk about in the adverts, which kind of got me thinking about something I used to talk about, which is this idea that success is still the exception, not the rule. Particularly when it comes to business, particularly when it comes to finance, making money, it is still very much the exception in terms of the number of people who are where they want to be financially and the number of people who are still, if you like, working towards that or struggling to make any progress towards it, or really just aren't making the kind of progress they want or making it fast enough. And it's like, what is it that gets in the way? Because if you look at it in terms of logically, you could say, okay, look, we're going to launch a business of some sort. Maybe we need a certain amount of money. Maybe we need a certain amount of time or the resources or the people. All of that may or may not be true. But I can give you examples of companies where people have started with absolutely nothing and become very successful. And conversely, I can show you examples of companies that started with all the right backing in terms of venture capital, all the right people, but yet still managed to not get to where they want to be or still managed to fail. So ultimately, it's not the external things that make the difference. What really makes the difference are the obstacles that are in here, in your mind. These are the things that can blindside you. Does that make sense? So they're there, but you're not aware of them. And they may be things that came about, or because human beings are meaning creatures. In other words, an event happens, we attach a meaning to it. And you could have the same event with two different people and get two very different meanings. So something could happen early on in your life and you associate a meaning to that, meaning that, relationships are bad and you should stay out of relationships. And obviously that would have an impact on your life until you become aware of it and you do something about it. Like you may suddenly get into a relationship, but you get out of them very quickly, or they fall apart very quickly. Or conversely, the same event could have happened and you might have realized that actually the meaning you attached to it was that relationships take some work. So then the relationships that you've got into later in life, you don't just bail at the first moment. You realize there's a little bit of work required here. So you do whatever's needed to make sure the relationship works. That makes sense, so that it stays on track. Now, the same is true with money. So the question then is, how do you become aware of the blocks that are potentially blindsiding you, that are potentially getting in your way? Because unless you're aware of what it is, it's extremely hard to deal with it. So first of all, understand, you will not come up against those blocks until you have a goal. Like if you're just happily going around doing nothing, taking life as it comes along, waking up in the morning, going out for a walk, going to bed at night, and just that's it. You just kind of go with the flow. Those blocks are never going to interfere with your life because you're never going to come face to face with them. So they only arise as soon as you set a goal. So as soon as you say to yourself, like, you know what, this year I want to make $100,000 or £100,000 or 500,000 or $1 million, whatever the figure may be. And then it's like, okay, so what am I going to do to get there? And you might start making a list of the things that you need to do. And then you start going for it and you're giving it full effort. You're waking up early in the morning. You're joining the 5 a.m. club and you're working till late and you're burning the candle at both ends and you're giving it your all, but you're not making progress. Why? Because ultimately, the reason success is the exception, not the rule, is because what will ultimately determine your success is whatever limits your potential. Whatever stops you from doing the things that you need to do without you even being aware of it. So whatever kind of, if you like, holds you back, whatever limits you, whatever stops you taking the actions you need to take or seeing the solution that you need to take is ultimately what's going to determine how successful you are. Because, there are people at all sorts of different levels financially. There are people that are broke. There are people that are okay, they're comfortable. And there are people, certainly in the business arena, who have hit a level of income which is extraordinary and life-changing. And what's the difference though between somebody who makes $1 million a year, someone who makes 10 million a year, someone who makes 100 million, or someone who makes $1 billion? Ultimately, what determines that level? And from my point of view, what it really comes down to is one, first of all, desire, of course. I mean, if you only want to make a couple of million, that's fine. But desire is going to be one of them. But secondly, beyond that, if everybody had the same desire, what really limits you is whatever blocks your potential. Whatever stops you tapping into all of this potential you've got inside you and using it and leveraging it and focusing it on achieving the goal that you want to achieve. So that's the first thought. You will not run into your obstacles until you set a worthwhile goal. So set a worthwhile goal, because this is where this whole idea that you got to grow in order to achieve your goals comes from. Because as soon as you set a goal that is kind of beyond your comforts, then you absolutely, once you start heading towards it, you are going to face your demons, your blockages, the things that are going on in your mind, and now you got to find a way to deal with them. But what's even better is to kind of deal with them in advance, to anticipate them, because you're going to face them anyway. But the more you can anticipate up front, the easier it'll be to deal with them now, so that you make it easier to get to where you want to be. Does that make sense? So first question you want to ask yourself is, as soon as you set a goal, what's stopping you? Now, when I say what's stopping you, what I suggest is that you get a journal, big fan of journaling, as you know, and start writing in it, literally free write, just write what comes in your head. Because there are things that are going on below the surface, deeper in your subconscious mind, that you're not generally aware of day to day. But by free writing and just trusting what you write, things will come out. So just do it as an exercise, just like literally write all the things and see what comes out of it. Because there will be things that come out, which are not directly related to the money, but will have some impact on your ability to achieve it. So that's the first thought. The second one is, if you take a goal, any goal, doesn't matter what it is. Let's take a fitness goal. It's probably easier for me to illustrate with that. Let's say you got a fitness goal that says, you want to increase your amount of muscle your body's got and reduce the amount of fat that you've got around your body tissue. Then it's like, okay, what do you need to do in order to achieve that? So there are certain things which are absolutely critical, and actually they are called critical success factors, which are needed to achieve that goal. So, and if you don't have them, you'll never hit the goal. Now, where these things are useful is, for example, you might say, okay, well, exercise is necessary. Absolutely it is. What you eat, paying attention to what you eat and eating the right things is absolutely necessary. Totally right. So those are critical success factors in terms of building muscle, reducing fat. But then you can use those to kind of look at where you are and go, okay, well, why don't I have those? Or what's stopping me having those? Does that make sense? So it's another way of finding and digging deeper and trying to find the obstacles that are limiting your potential. Now, when you've got all of these things out, you could literally, I've done this for myself as an exercise, and I've taken clients through this, and we've literally used Post-it notes. And so everything that comes out of their mouth, we just write it on a Post-it note, and we stick them up, we stick them up, stick them up. And then I get them to look at the actual goal and say, okay, here's the goal you want to achieve. What are the critical success factors to this? And understand as well, this is kind of a very important point. I don't know is relevant, as in it's important. So if you look at a goal that you want to achieve and you say, I don't know what's needed, then write down, I don't know, because that thought is an obstacle in itself. Actually, if you take nothing away from this video other than that, I would say tattoo that somewhere you can see it. I don't know is an obstacle. And because then you got to question, why don't you know it? Anyway, so we get all these out. And I suggest you do this for yourself. Get them all out. Put them on Post-it notes. Stick them around. Now, here's what's important. Once you've laid them all out, first of all, when you look at them, you'll notice that some of them kind of relate to each other. So they may be ways of saying the same thing, but you just use different words. And that's fine. So put them together. So cluster them into little groups. That's called chunking, by the way. So you chunk them together. Then what you'll probably end up with is a number of chunks. Start with the first chunk and ask yourself why. Why do you think that? Why is that occurring? Why is this happening? And whatever answer you come up with, write it down. Put it on another Post-it note, ideally a different color. And keep doing that. And you'll eventually get to a point where you see yourself repeating the same thing. And what's important here is, at this point, you're getting close to the real obstacles that are going on in your head. And if you do this for each chunk, what you'll notice is, and this is the important part, what you'll notice is the reason is the same. So in other words, all of these, if you like, your first answers to what's stopping you are a bit like your surface answers. They're the most obvious. They're the ones floating on the surface of the pool. But the real issue is down at the bottom of the pool. It's the big plug that's holding the water in. That's the one you want. In other words, all of these surface obstacles are all examples of one much deeper root obstacle. Does that make sense? In other words, they all come out of one big root. And that's the one you're interested in. Because find that, address that, and what happens? All of a sudden, you release a massive amount of your potential that you can use that translates directly into action. And you'll start noticing, you start taking more action and doing more of the relevant things that you were supposed to do to get to your goal anyway. That's the power of this. So the important part is recognize All obstacles are in here. Whether you think they're external, they're not. They're all in here. And secondly, all these obstacles that you think you have all have a similar root. And it's the root that you're interested in. This actually comes out of, you can maybe dig deeper into it if you wish. I'll probably talk about it another time, of something called systems theory. So there's this idea that in a system, so there's something called theory of constraints, which is a way of thinking about systems. And in theory of constraints, the idea is that every system has a bottleneck. You know, like a wine bottle, the neck is narrower than the main part of the bottle. So in other words, the flow of the wine out of the bottle is restricted by the width of the bottleneck. So that's the root cause. That's the challenge. And that's what you're looking for when you do this as an exercise. But even if you never did it as an exercise, just being aware that you want to recognize that you will have blind spots. If you are human and you have grown up in life, then you have faced challenges, you've had pain in your life, you've had problems, you will have blind spots. And secondly, recognize that all of the things which are obstacles, which initially you kind of become aware of, all have a similar root, and it's the root that's interesting. The bottleneck is that's interesting. Now, here's where it gets really, really interesting. When you find the root, when you find that root obstacle, the obstacle itself, more often than not, is fear related, but it's the specific fear that you're interested in. And then, of course, that in itself becomes the, if you like, the root. There's something that, let me explain this a little bit better. There's something that Marcus Aurelius talks about, which is this idea that the obstacle to the path becomes the path. Ryan Holiday then wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way. In other words, the challenges you face are actually have within them the seeds of the solution that you need. And the same is true here, because like in systems theory, the idea of finding the bottleneck, what you then want to do is actually leverage the bottleneck so you get a bigger amount of wine coming out of the bottle without changing the bottleneck. So in other words, the bottleneck provides a solution somehow. So the same is true here. So if you discover that you have a certain fear, like common example, fear of what other people think, and that's maybe stopping you from doing more video or being more present on social media and giving yourself more visibility, and that visibility, of course, would help your business, but you're limiting your visibility because you've got this concern about what other people might think. That's common. But you got to lean into that. You got to recognize that actually the solution to that is to do more video. Does that make sense? So in other words, that obstacle becomes a solution that leverages the solution. So I'll probably talk about that in a future video. Maybe I'll do a book review of Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way and kind of explain it in more detail. But I just wanted to make you aware. Awareness is the first key to solving any problem. But if you blindly go through life struggling to make progress on the goals that you want to achieve without really having an understanding of why, that's what I wanted to make you aware of. It's like there are obstacles. They are in here. They are all mental. They are not real. They are perceptions. And you can find them. There's a root to all of them. Pull the root out. Change it. Now you find the solution to it. So if it turns out that you do have an issue with obviously worrying about what other people think, lean into it. Do more video. The solution is staring you in the face in that respect. All right. Hope you found this useful. Go ahead, do the exercise, find your root cause. Remember, until you have a goal, you will not come up against your obstacle. As soon as you set a goal, you start making or attempting to make progress towards it, then absolutely you will start hitting your obstacles. You'll start hitting the boundaries of your challenges internally. Look at the goal itself. Ask yourself what is absolutely needed to achieve that goal in terms of what are the key critical success factors, and then use those to help you also understand what's stopping you. So what's stopping you from having that goal? What's stopping you from achieving that goal? What's stopping you making progress on that goal? Use your journal, get your ideas out. Then list all these obstacles and start going deeper. Look at one of the obstacles, go, okay, why do I think that? Whatever answer, put that underneath. Whatever answer that is, why do you think that? Go further again. Do that for all the obstacles. You will find there is a common pattern. There is a root, one root to all of those challenges, one root to all of those obstacles. Find that root. Then once you're aware of it, now you can do something about it. So as the example I gave you, if it was as simple as, concern about what other people think, then the solution is to lean into it, do more video, put more stuff out on social media, because it's an opportunity to grow. Yes, I guarantee, if we're using social media as an example, I guarantee you put things out in the universe, on the social media universe, there are going to be people that don't like what you do, and some of them are going to be very vocal about it. I guarantee that. But all of that is an opportunity for you to grow. Does that make sense? In other words, the obstacle within it has the seed of the solution that causes you to grow. And by growing, of course, what happens? You move closer to your goal. All right. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, remember to subscribe, like, share it maybe with people that you feel would benefit from this as well. And I'll talk to you in the next video.